it's been a couple of years now since my last video on starting issues. If you want to see that, there's a link in the description. How I got my 2.5 TDI running again. And progressively the van has taken longer and longer to fire up. I have no fault codes, the timing is set. So the only thing that it can be now, seeing as though I have tested the battery to make sure it has enough cold cranking amps to start the car. So the only thing it can be now is that the injectors need replacing. So this engine has its original injectors as far as I'm aware. It's done almost 150,000 miles. So if they're the original injectors, it's done extremely well. So they're the Stanadyne injectors, which don't have a good reputation. Why Volkswagen ever used them is anybody's guess. So I have managed to get a refurbished set of Bosch 216 injectors, and then it'll have to go back to 2H Performance for injector quantity adjustment and just a little bit of mapping adjustment as well to account for the new injectors. You can just see in here I've loosened all of the injector hoses, injector pipes of the injectors. So now I'll just remove the leak back pipes. Now that the under tray has been lowered, you can get to fuel lines on the pump underneath. The fuel pump is that nice new silver thing that I had fitted. And this is the fuel line for injectors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty simple to tell. That's the fuel pump side, that's the injector side. So I've undone the nuts on the pump for injectors 4 and 5. So it's easier to take off the lines for 1, 2 and 3, and then you can get to the nuts for 4 and 5. And I haven't taken the radiator out because I really don't feel like flushing the coolant again. And there you go. That's the injector side, that's the pump side. Now apparently I need to reshape this line for injector number 5 because on the Bosch injectors they stand a little bit taller compared to the Stanadynes. Apparently I just need to heat this up and reshape it gently and the job's a good one. Before I pull the injectors I need to remove the leak back hoses. Just going to pop those off, get them out of the way. They were recently replaced in an effort to try and resolve this slow starting issue. But I just think from reading other people's posts about what happens with the Stanadyne injectors on the AJT engine, it actually has just got to the point where although it runs and idles beautifully, it just is a little bit slow to start. And quite frankly, I don't want to get stranded 1800 miles away from home with the van that doesn't start. So summer's coming. I'm just trying to show you how to get to the holding nut, which is a 6mm Allen hex, which you'll need to put on the end of a wrench. Now I've used a long wrench to get the leverage so I don't jerk it and damage it with a shorter wrench, and the longer wrench works beautifully to get in there and loosen these up. Injector number 4. With a little fast-acting penetrating fluid. These injector bolts are coming off pretty easily. and of course using the longer leverage on this socket. Normal breaker bar would be difficult to get in here because of the shape, but this one, because it has the flexi end, can be a real pain sometimes, but in a situation like this, these flexi end breaker bars are brilliant. Well, that's all of the brackets out that hold the injector in. These go in, the injector's over there, these go in and hold the injector in place. So these appear all to be the same for all 5. So they're all out now. Now to pull the injectors. In order to remove the injectors from the block, you're going to need an injector puller like this. This is a Lucas Bosch one, which has the correct size fitting on the end. Basically, you get this into your engine bay, screw this end onto the injector, rotate the shaft like that, and then you hammer it like this and it slides it out. So I've sprayed each of the injectors with some penetrating fluid. And that was easy enough. That's the first one done. There you go. Look how filthy that is. Now for the last one. Boom. Honestly, it would be very difficult to do this without the injector puller. It is possible, but seriously, this makes such light work of it that it's highly recommended. You can get them, from about 20 quid upwards. Get one in advance. Absolutely filthy. So glad I'm changing these. The one injector on the AJT, which was in position 4, sometimes known as the 5th injector, because I think the longer one with this connector fits in the 5th cylinder on the ACV, which is effectively exactly the same engine as the AJT, a different map, intercooler and injectors. So this is the one that has the needle lift sensor in it, and you can test whether this needle lift sensor is good or not by testing the resistance across those 2 connectors. I cannot remember offhand what it is, but it is available on T4 forum. So this is the last one. This goes down to a connector near the front of the sump. There's a cluster of connectors way down the bottom. You've got to disconnect that, feed it up to get it out. So let me show you the difference between injectors that have done almost 150,000 miles and ones that have been newly refurbished with brand new nozzles. Right, so there are my new injectors. Bosch 216 nozzles. That is the order that they came out of on my motor. Look at that, injector 1. The difference is pretty remarkable. Just look at that. If you have any doubt in your mind about whether you need to refurbish your injectors, I think that these are a perfect example of how filthy old injectors can be. I can expect much better performance and fuel economy out of these new injectors compared to the old ones. Just remarkable, the difference. So I've got a little bit of copper slip on the shaft of the injector and the new copper washer on the end. Just gently insert that into a recess there. Well, the injectors are in, all nipped in place with the little... So now I'm just reattaching the leak back hoses. As you can see, I've put the 5th injector on the 5th cylinder over there, which is going to mean that this hose here, this fuel line over here, is going to need some adjustment to fit correctly, but at least the other 4 should fit fine. So just finish off these. It's a good opportunity to check all the glow plug connectors are on. All right. Pop the last one on there. There we go. Don't forget end cap. That's all the injectors fitted and nipped down. All of the leak back hoses are connected, and don't forget the last little one which goes on the end to cap off that injector over there. So now I will start refitting the fuel lines. The last fuel line will need some bending and shaping because the 5th injector is longer, but all the other 4 should be fine. Now the last thing to do is to tighten up the fuel lines on the back of the fuel pump. I've already connected the plug down at the bottom for the 5th injector. I have read online that it doesn't make any difference what hole that 5th injector is in, but seeing as I've seen pictures of it in the 5th hole on the ACV engines, that's where I'm going to put it. Well, that's where I have put it, so I'm just going to nip up these. Double check everything, make sure I've got all the fuel hoses connected. Let's nip these up. Right, let's start it. I'd say that's a win. Started immediately. Once it had been primed, no leaks. Bit cold. Yeah! Good morning. Well, it's the next day. after I fitted the new injectors, which you've already watched. So here we are. It's been overnight. The van has stood without any changes. I haven't charged the battery. I haven't filled up the fuel tank. The fuel tank is still just about a quarter of a tank. So that eliminates any fuel tank sender problems, because that is new. If you see my other video, you know I've replaced that. So all things considered, the only thing that's been changed is the injectors. And as you saw from the first clip, it took a good dozen cranks before the car started up. So let's see now. It stood overnight. It's been quite cold overnight. It's been raining. So it'll be a real test of whether injectors are working. So here we go. Grab it. Let's have a look. Happy days. So there you have it. If your AJT 2.5 TDI takes forever to start, but runs great, drives great, but doesn't start on turn of the key, without a doubt, it's the injectors, if you have no other faults. So there you go. Well, good morning. We are off to TH Performance in Havant in Hampshire. This is the first long drive after fitting the new injectors. Nothing's been changed, ECU nothing, and the van is driving fantastically well. It is so much smoother, it is quieter, acceleration is better. So after the ECU tweak for the new injectors, it's going to be really interesting to see how it runs after that. So anyway, dealing with the English traffic. Catch you later. It's a beautiful day. Oh, where should I park it? And here we are at TH Performance for an ECU tweak. The van is now done, and Terry has tweaked the ECU a little bit to suit the new injectors, the Bosch 216 injectors, and it's purring like a kitten. And most importantly, aside from purring like a kitten, it now has 132 brake horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque from a 2.5 AJT motor with the Bosch 216 injectors and an intercooler. No bigger turbo, no different exhaust manifold or intake manifold, so I am extremely happy with that result. Happy days. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.